Welcome to the Ultimate Gut Health Challenge. So if you notice that I'm actually sweating, it's because I took a very intense steam this morning and I didn't spend enough time in the cold plunge. So if you see me wiping my face, it's because I'm still sweating from getting in the steam room and the cold plunge. Let me talk a little bit about how this gut challenge came about. You know, every month I try to do a free challenge. We've done water fasting, we've done 10,000 step challenges, we've done cold plunge challenges, we've done all kinds of challenges, and I really try to give without the expectation of receipt and really try to listen to my audience and say, hey, what is it that you're struggling with? What are the majority of the questions that are coming into my inbox, and what can I do to put something together to help answer those questions, but more practically change the habits of people. You know, I'm building a course right now called Becoming the Ultimate Human. And the whole idea of this course is to actually change the habits of people. And that's what the next 3 days is designed to do. It's really designed to empower you to be independent, to take control of your own healthcare choices and to actually become the most ultimate version of yourself without having a lot of outside influence. So the next 3 days is really designed to educate you on the importance of gut health. It's the most overlooked thing, in my opinion, in all of modern medicine. If we take a step back for a moment and we talk about some of the things you might not even know that your gut does for you. So for example, thousands of people in my inner circle and my rural breakfast community are suffering from hypothyroid, right? Low thyroid. And we've been told, well, it runs in your family, so you have genetically inherited hypothyroid. There's nothing you can do but be on Synthroid or levothyroxine or Armour Thyroid for the rest of your life. Because if I can get you to subscribe to the fact that you have a chronic disease, especially a genetically inherited disease, then I can get you to subscribe to the fact that you need a lifetime of medication. And that is most often patently false. So when we talk about the thyroid, for example, many of us don't even realize that the majority of thyroid diagnoses are done because you have a low T3 hormone. If you look at your blood panel and it says you have low T3, your doctor's going to say, hey, you have hypothyroid. And they're going to put you on medication to pound a perfectly healthy organ into submission for a crime it hasn't committed. So the question is, you know, how is this T3 hormone made? Well, we take the hormone T4 that the thyroid makes and we convert it into T3. It's shocking to some people to realize that their thyroid only makes 20% of the T3 hormone in your blood, which means if you have low T3, there's an 80% chance it's not your thyroid. So where does the rest of that hormone get converted? Outside of the thyroid, in your liver, some in the periphery, and in your gut. So your gut is actually very important for your thyroid function. What does the thyroid do? It regulates our metabolism. It regulates our body temperature. What other things does the gut do? Well, most of us are unaware that the majority of our neurotransmitters are made in the gut, including dopamine, serotonin. Do you know where 90% of the serotonin in your body is? It's right here in your gut. So if you don't have serotonin here, you can't have serotonin here. And what does serotonin do? Well, it helps to regulate mood. They call it the happiness hormone. It's in combination with other neurotransmitters. But if you're deficient in the ability for your gut to convert this hormone and your liver, deiodinize thyroid hormone T4 into thyroid hormone T3, well, now you have a mood disorder, right? Because your mood is off. And moods and emotions are like recipes, right? If you said to me, what is happiness? What is sadness? What is anger? What is joy? What is arousal? What is passion? All these we call them emotions or moods, but all they are combinations of neurotransmitters in your brain, creating a sensation of mood. Well, what if you're deficient in those neurotransmitters? Well, now you can't assemble a certain mood. So if I said you could be in whatever mood you wanted to be in, you just couldn't use serotonin. It sounds like a very simple deficiency, but now every mood that requires that neurotransmitter can no longer be assembled. So my whole point in telling you all of this is that our gut is responsible for so many things. It's like the hub of the wheel with all of these spokes. Right? Remember those old bicycles you used to ride when you were a kid that had all those little metal spokes? When something goes wrong with the hub of the wheel, we start chasing all of the spokes. Oh my gosh, I have a mood disorder. I have thyroid, hypothyroid. I have dysregulation of my emotions. I'm never really happy. I'm sad all the time. You know, these things are not necessarily mood disorders. They very well could be disruptions in your gut. And think about this. Why would 75% of our immune system, 75% of our immune system, why would it sit right outside of your gut? Why would the immune system line your gut and just sit there waiting for something to happen? Well, because that's where all the action is. When I mean all the action, that's where your immune system is most needed. Why? Because this is where all the villains leave your external world and enter your internal world. There is only a single cell layer protecting you from your outside world. Think about the fact that your gut lining is contiguous with the side of your cheek, right? So if you rub your cheek, that skin, which goes inside of your mouth and your mucosal membranes, it goes down your esophagus, lines your stomach, exits your stomach, enters your small intestine, works its way through 30 feet of small intestine, and then enters your colon and finally exits your rectum. And yes, it's continuous with the outside of your thigh too. Your gut is outside of your body. It is as external to your body as the back of your forearm. And if you think about it this way, it's folded inside of your body. But this is a tube that's meant to run through your body, and it's meant to protect you from pathogens, viruses, bacteria, parasites, all kinds of invaders that are in your outside environment that are trying to make their way inside of your body. There's two ways to get nasty compounds inside of the human body. One is through the gut and the other is through the lungs. So we're focused on the gut because this single cell layer, one cell layer thick, gets disrupted. And it gets disrupted because we bombard our cellular biology with a toxic soup. So many of us are not tracing the issues that we face in our life: mood disorders, hypothyroid, mood dysregulation, autoimmune diseases, to actually disruptions in our gut. And modern society has put us at a disadvantage with the amount of pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, preservatives, non-natural compounds that we put into our body every single day that cause disruption in this gut lining. You've probably heard the term leaky gut. What does leaky gut mean? I mean, it sort of describes what it means, but essentially it means that you have disruption in this single cell layer. So when this single cell layer is disrupted or it's inflamed, compounds that are inside of your gut, like bacteria, like pathogens, like viruses, like mycotoxins, like mold spores, and many of the compounds that we eat in our foods, like food dyes, which are horrible for your gut. There's a recent study, which I'll put at the end of this gut challenge, about red dye number 40 and how it is absolutely toxic to the single cell layer inside of the luminal wall of your gut, protecting you from your outside environment. So what happens is we get minor disruptions in this gut lining. When you get minor disruptions in the gut lining, things that are outside of your body start to move inside of your body. Things that are not supposed to be in your bloodstream start to enter the bloodstream. And then what happens? The immune system flares up. The immune system is actually trying to protect you. Very often when we get told we have an autoimmune disease, we assume that the immune system is misbehaving. And the truth is, we should take a step back when we hear we have an autoimmune disease and think and approach it like this. We should say, you know, God didn't make a mistake. He designed this thing perfect. I mean, it's such an intelligent design. I hate to bring faith in God into this, but the truth is that the more I go down the rabbit hole of science and human physiology, the more I believe that this was created by intelligence. You'll never convince me that two bacteria 1 billion years ago made love in a mud puddle, and now 1 billion years later you have a human being. It's an intelligent design. And so their immune system is sitting right outside of the gut, and now all of a sudden these creepy crawlers exit the gut, the immune system gets flared up, and guess what happens? You get told that
FedEx, and I'll pick up
tuna. If we realize that the immune system is actually acting properly, we would try to find out why the immune system is there instead of suppressing the immune system and hitting the body with heavy amounts of anti-inflammatories. These people that have Crohn's disease, just to pick one. Why would you assume that you woke up one day and your immune system has manufactured antibodies to the colon. Did it just go berserk one day and begin to manufacture antibodies to the colon? Or did that single cell layer get disrupted? Did pathogens from your gut leak into an area where they are not supposed to be? And did the immune system properly arrive to that location to protect you? And it is now manufacturing antibodies to your own tissue. And why is that? So let's say that this bottle represents a little pathogen. Let's say it represents a heavy metal or a bacteria or a virus. And this represents a healthy cell in your gut or in your body. When that virus goes to attack this cell, or when that pathogen is leaving your gut and entering your bloodstream, it doesn't sit outside of the cell like this. It goes inside. And once it's inside, the immune system, which is trying to get to that pathogen, cannot just walk through your cell wall. So what does it do? It manufactures an antibody to that cell, not to get to you, but to get to this, to the pathogen, to the thing that's trying to harm you, that's hiding, that's lurking inside of your cells. So it manufactures an antibody to this nucleocapsid protein to try to destroy the cell that's holding the pathogen. And what do? We hammer the immune system into submission and assume that the immune system has made a mistake. So one of the most universal things that we can do to affect the trajectory of our health is improve our sleep and improve our gut. Those, I think, are the two human superpowers. You show me a human being walking around that is regularly getting good sleep and also has a healthy gut lining, I will show you a healthy biome. I will show you somebody free from autoimmune disease, free from mood dysregulation, free from dysregulation of their hormones, and somebody who is probably pathogen and medication free. So this is all about getting us back to homeostasis. You know, we're sort of rewinding the clock and just getting back to the basics. It was super exciting, by the way, for me to see all of you guys posting that you made the meals that that we put into the gut challenge this morning. These are designed to be healthy, tasty, nutritious. I think people think that when we're going to do a gut cleanse or a gut challenge, that it's going to be really, really gruesome, and I have to, drink a bunch of icky enzymes or something and really flush my gut. I'm actually trying not to flush all the bacteria out of your gut. What we're trying to do is feed the healthy ones so they can overcome the bad ones. And then we're trying to put low inflammatory compounds or anti-inflammatory compounds into the body so that you can heal and seal the gut on your own. If we give the human body what it needs to do its job, that's when the magic happens. When you give human beings what their body needs to do its job, that is when magic happens in human beings. So many of you guys share these stories with me that some would call miracle cures. I don't think there's any miracle cures. I think it's just us understanding our own physiology and allowing the body to heal itself. So the next 3 days is just a journey on empowering you on how you can heal and seal your own gut. And I'm super excited to see the stories that come out of this, because people are shocked when they realize how many of the conditions that they're putting up with as a consequence of aging, which is, I think, a fallacy, as a consequence of aging, were actually related to their gut. So, so today we're for those of you guys joining us on YouTube, I've got all kinds of great guests coming. One of my favorite doctors is going to be joining us in about 45 minutes. We're going to answer all of your questions. But this morning we started with a really simple routine. We started with hydration and mineralization and amino acids. Remember that all human beings need the same 3 things, guys. All human beings need the same 3 things. We need 91 essential minerals. We need 8 essential amino acids. And we need 2 essential fatty acids. The word essential means they are essential for life. And for the record, you've heard me say this before, there is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. So let that settle in for a second. There is no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. And the reason why I tell you that is not so that you stop eating carbohydrates. It's so that you understand that carbohydrates are not essential for life. And if they're not essential for life, then we should be the most judicious when we make our choices of what carbohydrate goes into our body. So if we start to think about, what do I need to function optimally? I need the 91 minerals. I need the 8 essential amino acids. I need the 2 essential fatty acids. So let's make sure that we get the basics. You know, I talk about this all the time. I use this analogy very frequently, and it really helps people settle in to what I mean by the basics, because we accept this in plant physiology. If any of you had a leaf rotting in a palm tree or rotting in one of your oak trees at your house, and you called a true arborist, a true botanist out to your house, they wouldn't even touch your leaf. They would core test the soil, and they would say, you know what? There's no nitrogen in the soil. And they would add nitrogen to the soil and the leaf would heal. Well, how did the leaf heal? The leaf healed because we gave that plant the raw material that it needed to do its job. So as a part of your non-negotiable morning routine, we should hydrate, we should mineralize, we should put the essential amino acids into the body, and we should put the essential fatty acids into the body. If you just start there and did nothing else, I'm not telling you to go and bathe your cellular biology in a toxic soup, but if you just started there, you wouldn't be deficient in the essentials that your body needs to function properly. What's astounding to me is that we rob the body of the essentials, the things that are necessary for life, that are necessary for healthy biologic function, and then we wonder why things have gone wrong. If you have ADD, you're not deficient in Adderall. If you have hypertension, you're not missing a beta blocker. If you have hypothyroid, it's not an absence of levothyroxine, right? Very often, these are absence in simple nutrients, simple raw materials that our body needs to do its job. You know, I'm on this massive campaign to help make America healthy again, which is not a political statement by any means, but it is targeting, you know, the food supply, the corruption in our food supply, the corruption in our nutritional research, the corruption in big food and big pharma's control over our public policy. And the reason why it makes me so furious is because we've gotten so far away from the basics and we're starting to lean more on chemicals and synthetics and pharmaceuticals than we are what comes from our own soil. You know, soil lineage studies done between the 1940s and the early 2000s show that just mass depletion in the nutrients in our soil. Forget even the pesticides, herbicides, insecticides, and preservatives, but the actual missing raw material. And this is why we have become the sickest, fattest, most disease-ridden, and mentally ill population on the surface of Mother Earth, despite spending $4.5 trillion a year on healthcare. The spending doesn't equate to outcomes. And I think if there were any blessings that came out of the pandemic, the biggest blessing that came out of the pandemic is that the majority of people like you realized that the elites in the government are not going to have our best interests at heart. We need to take charge of our own healthcare. We need to bring it into our house. We need to teach our children how to eat and how to thrive. And then we won't be dependent on chemicals and synthetics and pharmaceuticals. So I'm super excited about this because, you know, it seems really complicated. Like, gosh, I got to buy all these different foods and I got to get these different supplements. But what we're doing is we're just shifting your habits away from what we would normally eat in the morning that doesn't serve our temple to things that we can put in our bodies that are going to serve us. And if you start thinking about your body and your gut as a temple, and that everything that enters your body should be in service to you, we shouldn't let thieves into the temple. We shouldn't let things that we know are going to steal from us into our bodies and then wonder why we feel like we're suffering from the consequences of aging. You know, the last thing that I want to say is I want you to rethink how you imagine your gut. Okay, I want you to think about your gut from the back of your throat to your rectum. I want you to think about it as a 30-foot long conveyor belt, right? Because that's what it is, right? It's a conveyor belt system. We put contents on it at one end as they exit the stomach. And as it travels along this conveyor belt, and finally exits the rectum, it's traveling a 30-foot distance. Yeah, your gut is 30 feet long. Okay, so as things move along this 30 feet, what happens is the sequence of events is very important. It's just like a sandbag pass. One dude takes it off the truck, he hands the sandbag to the next person. That person takes it out of their hands and hands it to the next person. This sequence of events is very important. If anywhere along this chain in a sandbag pass, someone simply dropped their sandbag, what would happen to the next person? Well, even though there's nothing wrong with that next person in line, they can no longer pass that nutrient along. So what happens is as contents travel through our gut, what happens very often because of nutrient deficiencies or because of the acid pH imbalance, those sandbags get dropped, meaning the nutrients that are passing through our gut stop being processed properly and they exit as putrefied contents. They exit as non-nutritious, non-serving material from our gut. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start at the we're going to start at the top with what we put in, and we're going to sort of follow this all the way until it makes its exit, and just make sure that we have restored the proper speed to the gut. That's very important. I think it's the most overlooked thing in all of bariatric medicine is, every time something goes wrong with our gut, we start looking at food allergies, we start looking at food sensitivities, we start looking at what we last ate, and then we realize there's kind of no correlation between what we're eating and the symptoms I'm having. We think it's normal to live with gas or bloating or diarrhea or constipation or irritability or cramping, and it's not. And so the question is, how do we restore this normal gut function, and how do we restore the normal pace to the speed of the gut? Any conveyor belt system in the world, any factory on the surface of Mother Earth that runs on a conveyor belt system, if you were to go into that factory and without their permission change the speed of the conveyor belt, you would see that entire factory break down, right? All you did was change the speed. So things that change the speed are things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to restore the natural pace to the gut. We're going to restore the natural flora to the gut. We're going to reduce the inflammation that's in our gut. And finally, we're going to put things into our body that serve us so we can heal and seal that single cell lining, outside of our gut. Those of you that have grandmothers like mine, when I was growing up, there were always canning vegetables and we're always fermenting vegetables. Those women knew what they were doing. And I remember going into my grandmother's basement and seeing all of these jars, and it just used to freak me out. I was like, this feel like this has been down here since I was 5 years old, Grandma. Like, is this safe to eat? And she's like, oh, that's the best thing you can put in your body. And it's so true. These fermented vegetables that we're going to weave into our diet are vegetables that have been fermented, meaning they have actually gone through a natural decomposition process, and they are full of gut-serving bacteria. They are full of soluble and insoluble fiber. And this is so important for us because the insoluble fiber that you'll find in a lot of these fermented vegetables, kefir, sauerkrauts, kimchis, those things that you might not think are very healthy for you, these turn into, the insoluble fiber turns into something called free fatty acids. And free fatty acids are what reduce inflammation in the gut, and they heal and they seal the gut. And very often, when something is wrong in our gut and we bring in chemicals or synthetics or pharmaceuticals like proton pump inhibitors to reduce stomach acid, or we're chewing on Tums after meals because we have acid reflux, this is just buying you a problem further downstream. Do you know that the majority of acid reflux, if not nearly 100% of acid reflux, is actually not caused by too much acid? It's caused by your acid in your stomach not being acidic enough. So when you have a pH scale in the body, the pH range of the blood is very narrow. It's about a half a point. By the way, it's a complete fallacy that you can change the pH of the blood by drinking alkaline water. Simply drinking alkaline water will not change the pH of your blood. Drinking hydrogen water will add ions that can actually change the charge in your blood. But my point is that if our stomach, which is meant to protect us from bacteria, right? I mean, the whole reason why we have a stomach is so that we actually, in case we ingest pathogens, we have a first line of defense. And our first line of defense is what? Stomach acid. And the stomach has a very, very low pH, 2.5 to 3.5, very, very acidic. And what happens is when the pH is right in our stomach, the little muscle at the top of your stomach, it's a round sphincter muscle called the cardiac sphincter. You have another one at the bottom of the stomach called the pyloric sphincter. When we have the right acid in the stomach, meaning very low acid, low on the pH scale, what happens is that muscle constricts and it closes off the esophagus from the stomach, and then the contents in the stomach can properly churn. What happens if the pH begins to rise too high in the stomach? As the pH becomes more alkaline, too alkaline, then what happens is that muscle relaxes. And when that muscle relaxes, guess what happens? The contents splash out of your stomach into your esophagus, and you go, oh, I've got acid reflux. I must have too much acid. And you start taking an antacid, or you start taking a proton pump inhibitor. And when you take a proton pump inhibitor, now all you're doing is blocking your first line of defense and buying yourself a consequence down the road. Why? Because if I start the process with all of these heavily alkaline, this stomach pH being too heavily alkaline, then I mess up the rest of the system. Now, I'm not talking about trying to change the acidity of foods that enter the body. That's actually a very good idea. What I'm talking about doing is using chemicals to actually suppress your own production of acid. So very often what happens after these gut resets is people realize, oh my gosh, I don't even need my Nexium or my Prilosec or my proton pump inhibitor anymore. I actually stopped taking Tums on the third day of your gut reset, Gary. It wasn't because I fixed your acid reflux. You didn't actually have acid reflux. You had an imbalance in the very early stages of your digestion, which has to do with the acid in your stomach. So we're targeting a whole bunch of things over the next 3 days. Restoring the right acid balance in your stomach, restoring the right flora to your gut, empowering the healthy flora to overtake the bad bacteria, reducing the inflammation in the gut, restoring the pace of the gut, which is why I think every one of you should do a genetic test once in your life to find out if you're deficient in something like methylfolate, so that which is very important in the peristaltic activity of the gut. So we can wipe out anything that is standing between you and having a really healthy gut function. You know, if you're one of those folks that has a tendency to get repeated infections, you get influenza 2 or 3 times a year. Once a year, you get a really bad bronchitis. You have a lot of allergies. You're very sensitive to pollen or hay fever or ragweed or dust, which should not be inflaming you to the point where you actually can't breathe. Instead of maybe using a bronchial inhaler like a steroid to suppress your body's reaction, why don't we go into the gut, heal and seal the gut, empower the immune system to strengthen itself and protect you from these pathogens without you having to be symptomatic. So I always just like to do a little bit of background on the gut. So I hope that most of you guys were able to do the breakfast this morning. You know, especially if you're not in this time zone. You know, we poached the eggs rather than fried them because we even want to take away the impact that frying, that, you know, burning foods could have on our gut. So we boiled the eggs in water. We did 1/4 to 1/2 of an avocado, and we actually sauteed or we used pickled onions or another fermented vegetable. Something like a sauerkraut or a kimchi, to actually not only put the soluble fiber in our gut first thing in the morning, but to allow the insoluble fiber to become those free fatty acids. So I hope that you guys stick with me for the next 3 days, so that, you know, as time goes on, as we get to the third day, you're going to really start to see the power of healing and sealing the gut. We're also going to use some things like digestive enzymes, not just to help emulsify our food, but to put the food into our gut in the state that it is supposed to be in. A lot of us have dysregulation in the early part of our digestion, and which means there's no hope for the rest of digestion, right? Remember that sandbag pass. The sequence of events is very important. So sometimes we are using things like digestive enzymes and gut restore supplements so that we can heal and seal the gut, and we can actually have the contents leaving the stomach in the best condition to pass to your bacteria, so they can begin to turn them into everything that makes us healthy. Remember that we don't eat to feed ourselves, right? There's not a compound on any plate that you've ever put into your body that your body can use for energy. The only reason why we eat, human beings eat for one reason. We eat to feed our bacteria, and our bacteria eat to feed us. So if it wasn't for the trillions of bacteria in our gut, not a single one of you would be on this Zoom call right now. Not a single one of you. So it is so important that those trillions of bacteria are put in a position to thrive by giving them the raw material that they need to do their job, because we serve our bacteria and our bacteria serve us. That is an absolute fact. You couldn't take a piece of chicken, which by the way is useless when you swallow it, until it gets broken down into individual amino acids and passed into the gut. You couldn't take the soluble fiber, which is useless when you put it into your body, and turn it into free fatty acids, which serve you and reduce your inflammation. And I could go through thousands of examples like this, but the point being, if we reframe how we think about our diet and what goes into our bodies so that we are serving our bacteria so they can then serve us. That's how human beings thrive. And then the last thing I'll say is, I talk a lot about foods and dieting. I want you guys to know that for the next 3 days during this gut reset challenge, I've prescribed all the foods for you. I hope that you've gotten prepared for that. If you didn't, don't worry about it. You can do these at a later date. But the reason why I did it with these foods was because these are all whole foods. They're foods in their natural state. And I believe that whole food dieting, and the evidence supports this, if you read the longevity diet or you've watched any of the documentaries on blue zones, it's not keto, carnivore, paleo, pescatarian, vegan, vegetarian, raw food. It's none of those dogmatic diets that seem to extend life the most. It is eating a diet of whole foods. Very often it's not the food, it's the distance from the food to the table that matters, right? And so that's why I'm going to go to war for you guys and all of our children to try to get a lot of the corruption out of our food supply, because a lot of what we do to our food is completely unnecessary. It's done purely for profit or to increase yield. It is never done to increase nutritional outcomes or the nutrient density of foods. That we've got to take into our own hands. And so when we eat these non-nutrient dense foods or non-whole foods, which is about 66 to 70% of the American diet, highly processed foods, these are not only not serving us, but they are destroying our gut bacteria. The final thing I will say about gut bacteria is the evidence is now conclusive, right? It's no longer conjecture. It's no longer voodoo science. The gut-brain axis or the gut-brain connection has been now fully and completely established and soundly backed by science. You know, so goes the gut, so goes the rest of the body. And so when we have gut dysregulation, there is a certainty that we will have some kind, maybe it's not profound enough to interrupt your life, but we will have some kind of mood or autoimmune or other hormonal dysregulation. And so I think of all the foundational things we can do, going to work on the gut is probably the most prolific. So can I take a few questions before, how much time do we have?
25 minutes.
Okay. I've been yapping for 35 minutes already. I'm just talking off the top of my head here. My wife always says, Gary, you eat people's face. So hopefully I'm not eating your face, guys. Okay, 25 minutes left before we switch over to VIP and Dr. Gerald Jones on the call. He's right. Sorry, Dr. Darrell joins the call. I read that too fast. See, this is why I hate teleprompters, right? I mean, I would rather just freewheel it like Donald Trump, you know? So Dr. Darrell is going to join us in 25 minutes in the VIP room. But before that, I want to get to some of the questions for the people that are on the challenge. Is there an ideal time of day to take 5-methylfolate in this 3-day gut reset? Yes, you can take 5-methylfolate every day in the morning. For those of you that have ruminating thoughts at night, you're one of those people like my wife that lays down to go to sleep at night and your mind wakes up and you find that you're sort of ruminating about the day. And most of the time you're ruminating about the most innocuous little thoughts. Very often, this is too much catecholamine in the brain, right? The 4 neurotransmitters that are responsible for fight or flight. And as catecholamines rise, your mind wakes up even though your body is tired. You can take another methylfolate at night. Can gut help with eosinophilic esophagitis. So eosinophilic esophagitis is an overproduction of white blood cells, and it thickens the lining of the esophagus. But yes, when the immune system is overactive, right? Neutrophils, basophils, eosinophils, monocytes, leukocytes. When the immune system becomes overactive, we can overproduce the cells that respond to pathogens. So the body thinks that there's a fight going on when there's not a fight. And if you have an overproliferation of white blood cells, you have eosinophilic esophagitis. And so anything that we can do to calm the immune system down. By the way, how do you calm the immune system down? You strengthen it, right? You take away the reason why it got called to that site. I always use the analogy of the fire and the firemen, right? Firemen don't just show up to your house, right? They're called to the site because of the fire. The immune system is called to a site of inflammation. Something picked up the phone and told the immune system to come there. It doesn't just randomly show up and begin to attack things. So the notion that if we had fewer firemen, we'd have less fires is absurd. But this is a well-accepted thing in modern medicine. We say, well, every time there's a fire, the firemen show up. So if we had fewer firemen, we'd have less fires. And that's absolutely patently false. The fireman was called to that location. The question we should ask is, what started the fire? Why is the immune system there? Why do I have an overproduction of white blood cells? Why do I have a proliferation of a portion of my immune system, right? There is likely a fire, and that's why the fireman showed up. And so can you substitute tofu for chicken in the recipes? Yes, you can absolutely. So I should have actually put that in the gut guide, but you can absolutely substitute tofu for the chicken recipes. I know a lot of you may be vegan, and that's great. Vegans are people too. And they should be allowed to drive and vote and everything else. But you can absolutely substitute tofu. I'm really suffering with erosive gastritis. Can this help? Yes, this can help. And not only can this help, I think you should also look into a peptide called BPC 157, Body Protection Compound 157. And if you look at that, especially if you have erosive lesions, BPC 157 can really help when you have severe inflammation and damage to the gut lining. Lots of things are good for that. We're going to talk about those too. How do we use things like colostrum and other things to help heal the gut? But I did a lot of research for this gut challenge, and we just crossed our 160,000th patient in the last 10 years. So I pulled from all of that data and what was working when people had gut dysregulation in the vast majority of the population, and is exactly what we're going to do over the next 3 days. Let me get to two more. Morning, I have the MTHFR gene, dysbiosis, candida, and H. pylori, among others. Should I still eat fermented foods during the challenge? Yes, you can still eat fermented foods during the challenge. You're going to mix those with healthy proteins. For H. pylori, hydrogen water is also great to put into the stomach for Helicobacter pylori. If you would send an email to info@theultimatehuman, whoever that was that wrote that question, note that question. I'm going to send you some other things that you can do naturally for Helicobacter pylori, which is actually the main bacteria. Most of us have Helicobacter pylori. It's the overproliferation of Helicobacter pylori that's the leading cause of stomach ulcers. So, and I want to caution a lot of you guys when you have gut dysbiosis, candida overgrowth, parasites, other things, against doing very aggressive cleanses, because very often you get sicker from the cleanse than you do from the parasitic or the bacterial infection. Remember, if your detoxification pathways are not working, what's called transsulfuration, glutathione pathways, if your body's ability to eliminate waste is impaired, and then you do a detox and you go and kill a bunch of C. difficile or H. pylori or other pathogens or candida, the die-off from that can make you very, very sick. So there's a good sequence that we want to follow, which is to heal, seal, and strengthen first, and then begin to go after those pathogens so your body can take out the trash. If you just move the trash from your kitchen into your living room and don't take it out of the living room, eventually it is going to pile up there and rot and stink and cause another problem. We have to eliminate the waste, not just move it around. Right. So what we want to do, especially with the gut, remember, if you actually could see your intestinal tract, how much contents are in there, you would be absolutely shocked. And so when you go into a 30-foot long tube that's outside of your body and you kill a bunch of enemy bacteria or pathogens, or this is true for mold spores, it's true for mycotoxins, it's true for heavy metal detoxing, these things should be done low and slow, and not fast, like throwing a bomb into your gut. So today is going to help us with that. Is it okay to substitute sweet potato for carrot? Yes, you can also substitute sweet potato for carrot. Just do it without the skin. For the gut challenge, let's do it without the skin. Can years of taking antacids have a prolonged effect after stopping their intake? Yes, unfortunately, taking proton pump inhibitors for very prolonged periods of time means that we need to walk our way back to the proper acid balance slowly. I'm going to give you some things like betaine, hydrochloride, other things that can actually help restore the acid balance to your stomach. We're going to talk about those in the next 2 days. But yes, if you've been on PPIs for a very, very long period of time, we want to slowly titrate you off of those proton pump inhibitors and begin to have those cells that are lining the wall of our gut that actually make acid go back to the healthy production of acids. Can we have kefir or Laban during the gut reset? Yes, I'm a big fan of kefir. If you don't have dairy allergy, especially if you can get a hold of raw kefir, that's probably one of my favorite. I have a little place here called South Florida Ranches where I get raw kefir. Kefir is good. Raw kefir is great. If you can get it in its raw format, it's excellent. You can put that into smoothies. These are the things that are what we call prebiotics as well as probiotics, right? So we're not only just putting flora into the gut, we're feeding the flora that's there. So after doing a keto reset for 10 to 12 weeks, what's the next step to maintain a healthy lifestyle? So after you do a keto reset for 10 to 12 weeks, which is where you go into a ketogenic state, which I think is a very, very healthy state for the body. Remember that keto dieting, it has to be clean keto. A lot of people do really, really dirty keto diets because something is a fat. And it doesn't have carbohydrates, does not mean it's necessarily good for you. Deep fried chicken, seed oils, non-organic, non-grass-fed butters, these kinds of things, while they're fat sources, can be very pro-inflammatory. So just by the fact that it's keto doesn't necessarily mean it's healthy. You want to avoid all of the seed oils and have healthy amounts of things like avocado, coconut oil, olive oil, nuts. If you're a vegan or vegetarian, shelled hemp seeds is a great source of fats, and you can actually do a healthy keto diet while even if you're a vegan or a vegetarian, because there are high fat plant foods. But anyway, at the end of a 10 to 12 week ketogenic reset, it's very important to introduce complex carbohydrates, not simple carbohydrates. Simple carbohydrates are the ones that raise your insulin and raise your blood sugar very quickly. And so these are what we call high glycemic carbohydrates. A general rule of thumb is avoid the whites: white flour, white rice, white bread, white pasta, white potatoes, and grains of any kind. Once you're emerging from a ketogenic diet, you can start to introduce things like sweet potato. You can actually have organic, non-fortified, non-enriched rice. So you want to have the complex carbohydrates that raise your blood sugar very slowly. It's very healthy to introduce those. Remember, keto diet was actually first really explored and invented to help treat epilepsy. It helped reduce the incidence of seizures. Why? Because it reduced the amount of inflammation in the brain. Keto diet, a true keto diet, being a state of ketosis, is the lowest inflammatory state for the body. You also make a type of intracellular water called deuterium depleted water. I'm not going to go deep down the rabbit hole of deuterium depleted water because your eyes will roll back in your head and you'll pass out. But if you really want to have some fun tonight, Google deuterium depleted water. This is the intracellular water that your body makes every day. It's super healthy for your mitochondria. Big fan of keto resets. I've heard you say keto is not good long term. Is the 3-day challenge meals should be everyday meals, or do it once in a while? You'll notice that we actually do have some carbohydrates in these meals. We didn't go completely keto with these meals. We just went high protein, high healthy fats. More people are deficient in protein than any other macro. The second macro people are deficient in is omega-3 fatty acids. Nobody is deficient in carbohydrates, right? So when we eat a well-rounded whole food diet, very often it's not the carbohydrate that we're missing. It is the omega-3 fatty acids in the right ratio, omega-3 fatty acids, and the proteins. Most of us are under-muscled, not over-fat, if that makes sense. Okay, we got time for a couple more? Okay, great. Could eggs be a contributing factor to my digestion issues? Generally not. Very few people, believe it or not, have a true egg allergy. I think, in my opinion, eggs have gotten a really bad rap because the yolk has cholesterol. But just remember that only about 15% or less of the total cholesterol in your blood even comes from your diet. So if you took the cholesterol in your diet to 0, the maximum impact you could have on your cholesterol level would be 15%. Where does the other 85% of cholesterol come from? It comes from the liver. It is manufactured by the liver. Cholesterol, by the way, guys, gets a bad rap. I think cholesterol is the most maligned and misunderstood compound in the human body. Cholesterol, if we talk about what it is and what it's not, is not a fuel source. The body cannot use cholesterol for energy, right? So what is it? It's a construction material. We build every cell wall, every cell membrane. We make all of our hormones from cholesterol. We make the single most important compound in the human body, in my opinion, vitamin D3, cholecalciferol. We make it from sunlight and cholesterol. So in the absence of cholesterol, your body can't build stuff. In fact, there are links now, direct links between the use of heavy statins driving cholesterol down too far and the early onset of Alzheimer's, dementia, and cognitive decline. So I think that we have improperly waged a war on cholesterol as a construction material, and cholesterol, going back to my analogy, is like the fireman. It doesn't just randomly stick to the arterial wall. It is called to the site of inflammation. Something has to call cholesterol and tell it to bind to the arterial wall. And that something is inflammation. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. How do you get yourself off sugar initially? So getting off of sugar can be tough because sugar addiction is right up there with all of the bad addictions, alcohol, nicotine. And the reason for this is we don't like the taste of sugar. We are addicted to the feeling of sugar. Sugar actually causes a release of dopamine. Sugar can actually drug you into wanting to eat it. It also spikes and drops our blood sugar and our insulin. And remember, when blood sugar is falling, you get very hungry. Once blood sugar has fallen, you are no longer hungry. So if we can maintain lower levels of blood sugar, steady levels of what we call hemoglobin A1C, the 3-month average of our blood sugar, and lower levels of insulin, we have less hunger spikes. And what is a hunger spike? It's usually a rapid drop in your blood sugar. So the more something spikes your blood sugar, the further it has to fall. And the further it's falling, the more it is dragging on the hunger response. Because as that blood sugar is tanking, your brain tells you, we need to eat again. And so my favorite way to get off of sugar is to first begin to replace the taste, and then you'll begin to replace the feeling. If you go, on my Instagram, I have a What's in Gary's Kitchen section. I have all kinds of recipes that I like that are very low on sugar, that help people that have a sweet tooth get off their sugar cravings. So we do things like take organic Thai coconut milk And you can get a light version of this, no dairy. And you can put a couple of tablespoons of that in a bowl. You can put in some grain-free granola. You can add organic berries and a teaspoon of monk fruit and mix that up. And you can actually, it's very satiating and it's very sweet. So things like that can help you get over your sugar cravings. It usually takes 9 days for your sugar cravings to begin to subside. And that 9 days can be very, very tough on people. If you've ever quit anything, alcohol, smoking, vaping, any kind of habitual pattern where you're addicted to a dopamine release, you know how difficult that can be. What I like to do is say, listen, I don't know if I'm going to go back to eating sugar. I'm just not going to eat sugar for 1 more day and just focus on the short term. Eat it in bite-sized chunks. One of the favorite quotes that I ever heard was by Ed Milet. And he talked about how his father had been an alcoholic most of his life. And then he became sober. And he said he would ask his dad all the time, hey, Dad, do you think you're ever going to drink again? And he'd say, I don't know, son, but I know I'm not going to drink for 1 more day. And I think that's a really good mindset to have whenever you're facing what seems like an insurmountable challenge. It's like the sun is eventually going to set today. And so I'm just going to focus on doing what I have to do to get the sunset tonight. And eventually those days will stack up and you can make it through the 9 days. But if you're sitting in your chair right now saying, I'm not going to eat sugar until next month or until November 8th, or what, it just seems too insurmountable and we have a tendency to quit. But you can just not eat sugar for 1 more day. Gary, can you, oh, I thought it said touch the supplements. I was like, well, yeah, there they are. Gary, can you touch on the supplements in the back you have there? Thank you. Yes, I can absolutely touch on these. Digestive enzymes, guys. So Body Health is one of my favorite manufacturers. Some people consider them a competitor of mine. You'll notice that very often I shout out companies I have no affiliation with and don't have any affiliate link with if I think they're doing really good things. If they've been really militant about their ingredients and their sourcing, and I find that we've used them very often in our clinical practice with very positive outcomes. You know that I shout out Thorne, Symbiotica, Pure Encapsulations. They're all competitors of mine. I don't consider any of them to be competition when it comes to impacting humanity and bettering people's health. So these Body Health makes an amazing digestive enzyme. So this first one, which is a part of our gut challenge, we're going to take with meals to help emulsify our food and gently ease it into our gut. We're gonna have our body the kind of support it needs so that our bacteria receive the contents in the right way. There's something called a lock and key mechanism. If you ever took high school biology, you might remember this. It's like a Pac-Man, right? And then so there's a lock and a key. And what happens is you have a nutrient and your body has an enzyme to digest it. And when the enzyme and the nutrient fit, right? Then this is when the chemical process of breaking down that nutrient occurs. So you got to think about this. We don't have enzymes to break down anything that's in processed foods, things like dyes and preservatives and pesticides and herbicides and insecticides. These kinds of things actually don't have a mechanism, a natural physiologic mechanism to be broken down. So it floats around the body and your body doesn't recognize it. If you have an enzyme for a nutrient, this lock and key method occurs, and then that nutrient gets broken down. So the digestive enzymes will help with that process, dramatically reduce gas, bloating, constipation, irritability, cramping, and they're not very expensive. They have pancreatin, they have pepsin in them, so really good for digestion. This is the probiotic. You know what probiotics are? Probiotics are bacteria. I like this one because very often, even the best probiotic companies don't protect the probiotic from the stomach acid, right? Remember, the only reason why we have a stomach is to kill bacteria. All probiotics are bacteria. So why would we put a bunch of bacteria in a capsule and let the capsule open in the stomach where it's just going to bathe in acid and get killed so we can pass dead bacteria into the gut? That doesn't make any sense. But most manufacturers don't think about, hey, where do I need this probiotic to open? I need it to open in an alkaline environment so that it spreads the bacteria out in the place where they're actually needed. So that's the probiotic. Of course, you know, hydrogen water. I can't say enough about hydrogen water. By the way, there's another study out on hydrogen water, circulation and inflammation, which I should also put into the show notes. For any of you guys that are not drinking hydrogen water yet, or even putting hydrogen tablets in your water, you really should be doing that, because there are just so many benefits from that. This is called Gut Restore. So now this is not a probiotic to change your bacteria, and it's not a digestive enzyme to break down contents. This is specifically meant to heal and seal and repair that single cell lining, right? Gut Restore will help absorb inflammatory compounds, histamines, cytokines, the things that are inflaming our gut, and it provides nutrients to actually repair that single cell layer on the inside of the luminal wall of your gut. And then this is one of my favorites. This is called gut defense, and gut defense helps us to get rid of what's called biofilms. So if you actually went from the center of the inside of the luminal area of your gut all the way out to the wall of your gut, you would find that one of the ways chronic inflammation really destroys our gut is it causes something called a biofilm. Think of it as a mucus layer, because it's irritated and it's trying to stop the irritation. So it secretes a film, and this film, which is meant to kind of protect you from all the contents in your gut, this film stops the absorption of nutrients across this membrane. So first we take away all of the things that are causing the inflammation. We put healthy things into the body that actually restore, that help repair that lining. And then we do things to remove this, what's called a biofilm, which is this sort of mucosal layer that forms on the inside of our gut. So we're doing all of this over the next 3 days. The idea is heal the gut, seal the gut, restore the natural flora, and restore the pace of the gut. And we can do this in 3 days. So I think we're getting close. So if you want to join the call with Dr. Daryl Joffrey and I, then you just need to upgrade to the VIP now. We're going to end the free call at 11, and then I'll be live from with the VIPs from 11 to 12. So you'll be able to ask questions. You'll be eligible for the giveaways and so much more. But listen, always, guys, I want these challenges to be free. Maybe you have to buy some of the foods that you're going to eat anyway, or some of the supplements to participate in the challenge. But if there's questions that you still have, we really try to provide value in these 1-hour sessions. It's not free to run these things. So if there's ever time for you to upgrade to VIP, now would be the time to do it. And I'll see everyone in the question and answer period for the next hour in the Q&A. But for everybody else, guys, please read this gut challenge guide. If you didn't get everything in the gut guide, you don't have to do it today. You can do it another time. But this was really surgically put together so that you get real results over 3 days. You can do anything for 3 days. You can give up your favorite foods for 3 days and follow that gut challenge guide. I promise you it will be worth it. Hormonal regulation, autoimmune conditions, inflammation, mood disorders, all kinds of things that you would be shocked are coming from your gut. So hopefully you'll upgrade to the VIP. I'll see you in like 2 more minutes on the other side with Dr. Gerald Joffrey, and I'll take your questions live.
Gary, let them know that there's a 2-week continuation once they do upgrade to full breakfast.
Oh, there's a 2-week continuation of the meal plan. If you do upgrade to the rural breakfast community, I call my VIP community the rural breakfast, then there's a 2-week continuation of the meal plan that I've written. I've written for you guys to make sure that we continue this gut challenge all the way to fruition. So I'll see you guys in the VIP. from Alkamind, one of my absolute favorite products. We've had him on before, so he's back again. I mean, this is like your wheelhouse, the gut challenge. I did mention it briefly in the previous free hour, but for those of you guys that are rule breakers and VIPs, remember you get a 2-week continuation of the diet and meal plan. So if you haven't gotten that, we're going to be sending that to you guys. Because you guys are my rule breakers. You're representing the ultimate human, so I want to make sure that you're the most ultimate version of yourselves. So this is my favorite part. This is where we get into the Q&A. This is really where the rubber meets the road. So if the previous questions were not questions that answered your question, then let's fire those off to Dr. Joffrey and myself live. Yeah, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience? Most of them know you.
Yeah, good to see everybody again. We've done a few things together, and always great to come back here in the neighborhood, just 2 hours north of here in Naples. But gut specialty is something that kind of came to me in 2014. We were talking about sugar before, sugar being the most acidic substance you could put into your gut. It's what I call a weapon of mass destruction for the gut. I was addicted to sugar my entire life. So a big part was learning how to overcome that sugar addiction, not by taking things out of my diet, which is deprivation based. That's like the white knuckle approach. It doesn't work. I mean, Gary was saying how it's like a drug. It's literally become America's drug of choice. But by adding things into your body that will strengthen you from the inside out. And that's how I ultimately overcame my sugar addiction. Then in 2014, my mom and dad were driving down from Hartford, Connecticut. They were actually driving to New York City, where I was living, to come watch me run the New York Marathon. And I got a call from my brother as I'm literally in my final training run a week before Marathon Sunday. And what happened was my mom and dad were in the HOV lane. They felt that car veering off the road. As my mom looks over, my dad is literally passed out at the wheel like this, 70 miles per hour.
Wow.
Car crashes, she pulls the keys out of the ignition, and I'm on my way up to Hartford. Long story short, my dad didn't have any heart issues. It wasn't like an aneurysm or a heart attack or a stroke. The doctor said, when I went up there, your dad has esophageal cancer. I was like, what? Cancer? And what happened was the acid was corroding his esophagus, literally making him bleed from the inside out. And that's why he passed out, because his blood levels were so low. So when I found out that he had esophageal cancer, I went into like massive investigator mode. What made my dad get cancer? Why did this happen? Why did we miss all the signs? And ultimately, that's how I became a gut specialist. Wasn't enough to save my father's life. I mean, the doctors gave him literally just a few months to live. He lived nearly 3 years. But in that time, I just learned everything there was about the gut to try to save his life. And that was my vow to my dad the day that he died. I'm going to do anything in my power to prevent as many people from suffering the way he did. And here we are now, many, many years later. And we're here to help you guys with your gut. And ultimately, it is the most important system of the body. We talk about the brain and that gut connection. And a lot of people say that the gut is the second brain. Gary, we call it like the first brain. Yeah. Right? You said it before. 95% of your serotonin is made in the gut. 80% of your immune system lives there. 80% of your nerve system lives there. It's your body's first line of defense. So we have to pay full attention, and this 3-day challenge is going to get you there. I did one last week. I didn't stop. I'm going full throttle to this one. So I'm like primed up and ready to go, man.
All right, let's fire it up, guys. Do you want to read them out of the chat, or do you have them?
We will be spotlighting.
Okay, you're going to be spotlighting.
Yes.
All right, this is awesome. Some of you guys remember my very first challenge when the dude crawled out of the balcony out here and just started running down, and people were waving at me in the background. I finally turned around and realized there was a guy out on the balcony with no railing.
It's crazy.
Okay, here we go. Is it Violet? Violet?
Yes.
Hi.
Violet. How are you?
Hi, Violet.
Morning.
So I've been a rule breaker pretty much from day one. So I've been following everything, making all the changes. I've had
Awesome.
gut issues probably majority of my life, and I've done everything and the right meats and the amino acids, and I walk around and tell my family, like, is this what normal feels like? Because it's crazy. But I guess my question is to understand the stomach acid, and because recently I've been having trouble taking like deep breaths, and I found out through 10X that my ferritin levels are low, which the doctor at the doctor's office does not measure. So she thought, and my iron saturation's low. And so I'm on an iron supplement, which is
Mhm.
helping, but from my understanding, I should work on my stomach acid to help with the iron saturation, right? Like,
Yes.
what's my next step in understanding how that would work? Because I don't have like the gut restore or all those extras, but I'm doing a lot of it. And I feel great, but like I saw Dr. Gandhi, got my metals removed, and he was explaining like my bucket's full. So that's why like I have to resolve these issues. So I guess I just want your advice on where I would go next.
You can take a stab at that.
Yeah, I love this question. I always say you're not what you eat, you're what you absorb and assimilate, all right? Digestion is critical. And it's not so much about looking at the downstream, like why do we have low iron levels? We got to go more upstream. So when I said that all disease begins in the gut, I'm talking about hypochlorhydria, which is low stomach acid. That's what you're talking about. So what happens is if we're not making enough of that stomach acid, we're not going to break down those nutrients in the food to give our bodies what it needs. You know, Gary was talking about hypothyroidism, right? You got to look to the stomach acid. Again, you're not getting those nutrients. It could be magnesium, iodine, selenium, vitamin C. That thyroid's going to go hypo, and it's the same thing with your iron levels. If you're not breaking those foods down, you're not going to get the iron amount that you need. So it's okay to take iron supplements, but again, you got to be very careful with that. I would suggest doing a multivitamin with iron in it, because too much iron in your body through supplementation can actually promote cellular division. That's cancer, right? So it's okay to keep doing that multivitamin, but ultimately we have to increase hydrochloric acid production. That's going to help you get the nutrients that you need. Very easy hack for that. 20 to 30 minutes before your biggest meal of the day, most of us that's dinner time, you're going to start with 1 teaspoon of apple cider vinegar, raw apple cider vinegar, and you want to put that in 1/3 cup of ideally warm water. Warm water is going to help increase the gastrin production in your stomach, which ultimately is going to create more hydrochloric acid. So the reason why we start at 1 teaspoon is you can always go more than that. If you do too much, you could get some acid reflux possibly, or some burning. So we want to prevent that. Do that for 3 days. And then just as long as you're not feeling any burning, then on the 4th day, what you're going to do is increase that to 2 teaspoons in 1/3 cup of warm water. Do that for 3 days more. On day 7, now you're at a full tablespoon, and then you stay at that level very consistently on a regular basis. Now, at some point, Gary has mentioned going to betaine hydrochloric acid. We could do that, but that's a different protocol, and you got to do that very carefully. So for now, this is a very gentle way to start to increase the stomach acid. And the last thing I want to say is if you eat protein as the first few bites of your meal, you're going to kick that stomach acid into full gear. So anything that comes after that is going to be more better digested.
So staying on this gentle way of doing things, how long do you normally stay on that gentle way until you find like your levels go up and then you stop the apple cider vinegar? Or are you recommending just to do it all the time?
Slow and steady wins the race. There's no downside to doing this on a regular basis. As we get older, we don't get stronger, unless you're Gary, we get a little weaker. You don't get faster, you get slower. We don't produce more stomach acid, we produce less. It starts when we're 20. So every decade, the average person loses about 10% of that hydrochloric acid. So there's no downside to doing it. There's only upside. The only thing that I'd be mindful of is somebody has acid reflux. You got to go very slow and gentle. I start with a 1/2 teaspoon. And if anybody does feel that burning in the chest, then you got to mitigate that right away. You can do some, acid kicking minerals. You can do some baking soda and a little bit of water. That'll calm the fire. But ultimately, this is something that will get you where you need to go. But remember, it doesn't happen overnight. So after a few days, if you're still like, oh man, is this working? Like you have to keep at that. Consistency over time will get you the results that you want.
And that's 30 minutes before your biggest meal of the day. So 30 minutes before your for your dinner. All we're really trying to do is restore the natural acid balance to the stomach naturopathically. By the way, if you're on the iron, I would make sure it's iron bisglycinate, and I would take it every other day, not every day.
Okay, I was on it every day, so every other day.
Yep, I would take it every other day, and the bisglycinate form will not constipate you and shouldn't disrupt you.
Doing the iodine, I'm doing all those other things you mentioned, so we're all good. All right, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Violet. Hi there, Cindy.
Hello, hi.
Hi, Cindy.
How are you?
I'm amazing. How are you?
Awesome. Hi, Dr. Darrell. I'm doing great.
Good morning, good to see you.
Good. I'll try to make this fast. I unfortunately had to have gallbladder surgery, had to have it out 3.5 weeks ago. Not what I wanted, but anyway, that happened. Now they want to do an upper scope on the 13th. And I don't want to do that. So I'm wondering if it would be smart for me to do the gut reset before I make any kinds of decisions. I just don't want to do that. I just don't feel like there's really a reason other than I just feel sometimes I feel like I have hard times, not hard time, but swallowing sometimes. I feel like there's something stuck there, but I don't like get burning or any of that stuff. So I don't know if I need to do this upper scope, and I would like to, like I said, I was just wondering if I should just try to do that gut reset first, if that would help anything. And if I can do it, because I have my gallbladder out.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fine to do the gut reset. Remember Carrie's saying, this is whole food. These are nutrient-dense whole foods, which your body needs anyway. The one challenge you're gonna have, and I'm not sure if your surgeon told you this, is that when that gallbladder gets taken out, now your body might have a little bit more trouble breaking down and assimilating the fats, because the gallbladder is important for two very critical parts of digestion. It secretes bile that comes from the liver. The bile is not only carrying out the toxins, so it's very important for detoxification, but the bile is also going to help your body break down the fats in your diet. Now, here's the good thing, is that your pancreas, which is kind of right next to the stomach, that those enzymes the pancreas makes is going to also kind of take over now and help the body break down not just carbs and protein, but fats. So you will get some assistance from the pancreas, but one thing that every doctor does that takes out the gallbladder that they should be doing, which 99% of them don't do, Gary, is that they should tell you to take some form of bile salts. I love a product called Beta Plus by Biotics. Again, no tie to the company. It's just amazing. And that's going to help your body break down those fats. There's a specific marker. We do DNA stool sample testing, and it's called steatocrit. So not to be descriptive here, but you can check out your poop when you go. And if your poop is floating, it means that you're not breaking down those fats. So you want the poop to sink in that toilet. And again, enzymes like Gary is talking about is very important, but also the foods that we're eating over the course of this 3-day challenge are loaded with enzymes. So it's going to be supportive of what's going on. We can't give medical advice in terms of what you should do on that side of it, but I think those supplements, the enzymes, and also the gallbladder support are very, very important.
Okay, awesome. And Gary, how long do I have to wait before I can start the cold plunge again? Because I've been doing it since January, and then they made me stop. So I've been not doing it for a month, and I really want to get going.
Yeah, so what I would do is I would start at the the warmer temperatures. Remember, cold plunge is technically anything below 58 degrees Fahrenheit. So I say it all the time. There's no evidence that colder is better or longer is better. Ideally, you want to be between like 48 and 55 degrees, but anywhere in below 58 degrees is considered a cold plunge. And the reason why we consider that to be a cold plunge is that's what will solicit the most vasoconstriction. It will activate brown fat, which is our thermostat, and it will cause the release of the cold shock proteins from the liver. And so it may be the release of cold shock proteins that they're trying to avoid. I'm not aware of a contraindication for that, but in the literature anyway. But I'm not a gastroenterologist or a GI surgeon. I'm unaware of anything that would prevent you from getting in 58 degree water. That close to having a surgical procedure. So I would just start at the higher temperatures and then work your way back down into the 48 to 55, 52 range.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for this 3 days.
You're welcome. I'm excited. I really am.
Good morning, I guess.
Charlie, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. I don't have my Rule Breakfast, the Ultimate Human shirt. My daughter ripped me off and took it from me.
Man. Yeah.
But anyway, this is kind of in a different realm, but my testosterone is 583. I'm 71 years old, and I'm thinking about supplementing. You think that's too low?
I don't think it's too low. It's actually for 73-year-olds. That's a very good range. I mean, most 73-year-old men would kill to have testosterone above 500, especially naturally. So what I would do is I would say, it's very safe to raise it as well. The high end of the range is about 963, 970. But what I would do is I would try to get high on your own supply rather than take it from outside the body and put it in. And what I mean by that is I would look at things that boost your own natural production of testosterone. We use things like Tongkat Ali. We use things like ganadorelin. These compounds that actually mimic the signal from the pituitary to the testicle to increase your own natural production. If you're working with one of the docs at 10X Health, they're super well versed in this. We've done tons of training on boosting testosterone. Remember, you also need to have the basic raw material. Very often, especially later in life, when you have adequate levels of hormones but not optimal levels of hormones, it's because of a raw material deficiency. The deficiency that I most commonly see is DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone. It's capital DHEA, which is on your lab. This will very often fall into the low double digits, and you want it in the triple digits. So when the body is deficient in the raw material to assemble the hormone, you get a hormone deficiency, but not because you have an inadequate ability to make the hormone, because you're missing the actual raw material, like DHEA. So if you're working with one of my docs, they're super skilled at this. But even if you're your age, no matter what anyone tells you, there is no better hormone than one the body produces on its own. If I can get you to naturally produce more of your own pituitary-derived growth hormone, that's a win. If I can get you to produce more of your own estrogen, and yes, have estrogen, and more of your own natural testosterone, that's a huge win. Receptor sensitivity-wise, we make hormones out of bioidentical, we make it from yams, but we make bioidentical hormones. I've never been convinced that those are as good as our own natural production. So I would boost it and not replace it.
Thanks for everything you guys do. It blesses my life. Thank you.
Thank you, man. Those are kind words. Thank you so much. Hello.
Hi.
Is it Heather?
Hello.
Yes, Heather. That's
Hi,
my
Heather. He just realized he was on camera and took off.
I'm out.
Later.
That's all right, hubby. We like you too.
He loves
There he is.
well, we just woke up. We're in Los Angeles, so we're still in our pajamas listening to all of this.
Awesome.
Taking it all in and everything. And so my question is, and I'm not trying to product drop or anything, but I just want to show you some of the things we use a lot. So we use a lot of allulose monk fruit blends. So the liquid kind, the sugar kind. I make mostly everything from scratch, like my dressings. I do a lot of gluten-free muffins that I just kind of combine, like, the coconut flour, almond flours, tapioca flour, some arrowroot thickener. So I've been kind of on the holistic journey of foods for a while. Our gut health sometimes can get disrupted, with everything you described in terms of like the bloating and the diarrhea, and we do the perfect aminos and the digestive enzymes. I know a lot of it is our fault because we're kind of 80-20. We go strong during the week, and then on the weekends we have fun and out. And we like wine and martinis and things like that. And then we notice Monday we pay for it. So we're trying to balance that. But my big question is, are these sugar substitutes a gut disruptor if we have too much of it? Because we have it daily. Like we'll put it in our protein shake. Sometimes I'll add like a quarter cup into a protein shake for the sweetened aspect of it. And I know the allulose is like derived from like dates and grapes and things like that. So I'm thinking these are good. I can't stand stevia. I won't use it, but I do like the allulose, the way that it tastes. And I do like monk fruit if it's blended. So what are your thoughts?
Go ahead, because I know you have some in your...
I love monk fruit. It's not going to spike your insulin, which
So do
is
I, by the
key.
way.
And that's the problem with most of our diets, is that the more insulin you dump into the blood over the course of a lifetime, you die sooner. It literally lessens your longevity. My other problem with anything coming from dates is that it's loaded with mold and mycotoxins. And those are a massive gut disruptor. You have to think about, like, what are the two big things that will mess up a gut? Dysbiosis, which is an imbalance in the bacteria, where you have less of the bacteria that defend your gut wall. You have more of the bacteria that are there to eat through that gut wall lining, which is called leaky gut. So you have dysbiosis and leaky gut, and then you have to have some form of a trigger. That could be something synthetic. And what's worse than the allulose is actually the artificial sweeteners. Aspartame obviously is a neurotoxin. Sucralose, it goes through the gut undigested. Once it gets into your microbiome, your healthy bacteria start to feed on it, and guess what happens? They die. And the research shows that if you're doing those artificial sweeteners, 50% of your microbiome could be wiped out in just a few weeks. So I like to go as pure as possible. So sticking with just the monk fruit organic is going to be your best bet for sure. I like stevia as well, non-bitterized stevia, because it can be a little bit bitter. So we kind of use both of those, but it's really based on your taste preference. Okay.
Is erythritol a disruptor? Erythritol?
Yes, big time. If you give erythritol to your dog, it's going to die. I mean, it's like, it's got to be very, very careful of that. So any of those sugar alcohols, I have a whole page of my book, Get Off Your Sugar, about that, and xylitol. You want to really try to avoid those and just stick with the monk fruit and the stevia. I know you don't like stevia, but both of those are okay.
The pure organic monk fruit, which if you're in, I don't know, West Coast, if you're like around an Erewhon, you can actually get the pure organic monk fruit, which is great. That's my preference too.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. I'm a member of Erewhon, so I didn't even know they had that. And that's
You
the
better
hard
get a
thing.
Gary Brecka smoothie while you're there.
I am. I saw you had one. It's probably better than the Haley Bieber one, I'm sure.
Yeah,
So-
the Haley Bieber one has 80 grams of sugar.
Don't
I saw
do that one.
I hammer her about that all the time.
I'm going to try that. But thank you. It's hard to find because almost all of these brands are blended. There is no pure monk fruit out there. It's always blended with either allulose or it's blended with erythritol. So in the stores, in a Whole Foods or a Sprouts, I cannot find a pure monk fruit anywhere. So I'm gonna try
Erewhon
the
has the
Erewhon.
pure monk fruit because I've gotten it there before. Comes in a red bag.
That's where we'll go.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Thank you so much, you guys. Thanks for being an
Good to
advocate
see
for,
you.
for everyone's health.
Thank you. There we go.
Morning.
Hey, Tim. I think you're muted, bud.
Okay,
There we go.
you hear me now?
Yep.
So thanks for everything. I've been doing it since probably March. I went down the rabbit hole. I listened to everything you say. It's like thumbs up. It's fantastic.
Wow.
Two quick questions. I'm doing the BPC 157. I started April 1st. I went from an 8-9 on my shoulder, and now it's like a 1-2. Question is, how long can I keep doing this for without having a problem? I'd like to be able to always do it, but I don't want a negative effect.
Mhm.
And then the other one, so I won't take up everybody's time. I jumped into that Zoe program, and I did the glucose patch on my arm, did all the cookies, do everything, waiting for some results. But the one thing that I noticed is I cold plunge every day, and my glucose point went up every single time, 40 to 50 points after a 6-minute cold plunge. I'm right about 50, 48 degrees, something like that. That normal? Am I okay?
Yes.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, let me answer your, and I'll give you a chance to do this too, but so BPC 157 stands for Body Protection Compound 157. It is, not to get hyper technical, but it is a gastric pentadecapeptide. It is a peptide derived from gastric juice. And this peptide, what it does, the reason why your shoulder's feeling so good, is it enhances the body's own ability to heal itself. Remember, the way that we heal is by, if we have tissue that is damaged, the platelets in your bloodstream will arrive to that tissue and they will drop off growth factors, right? They will actually give their life to that injury. They will, for lack of better words, burst like a piñata, and the candy that falls out are growth factors. Those go into the tissue and they accelerate the healing of the tissue. BPC 157, all of the literature that I have read, and there are athletes in foreign countries where they have long-term studies on these. I haven't seen any downside to long-term use. I actually plan to be on BPC 157 for the rest of my adult lifetime. When I have an injury, like I get a sore, you know, a rotator or you know, after I've been lifting heavy, I sometimes will get joint pain. I will actually double my dose of BPC 157 for a week or 10 days and then go back to the daily capsular dose. I am completely unaware of any downsides. There are other peptides that you need to cycle, but BPC 157 is not one of them, and it's very, very well tolerated. It's not one of those things you build a tolerance to. It's called tachyphylaxis, a desensitization response. Also, that is a very normal reaction to cold plunging. Let me explain what's going on there. Remember, the reaction we're trying to solicit in a cold plunge is not becoming cold adaptive. It's cold shocking the body. It's to simulate an emergency. You know, I was walking across a frozen lake and I slipped through the ice and now I'm in freezing cold water. What is the body going to do? It's going to panic, right? It's going to elicit what's called a hormetic response. And this hormesis actually strengthens you. The four main things that it does is immediately peripherally vasoconstrict the blood vessels to dump blood into the core, to preserve liver, lungs, pancreas, kidneys, heart, and the brain, to save your life. The second thing it's doing is it's actually releasing something called a cold shock protein. Cold shock proteins are reserved proteins that are in your liver. They have phenomenally positive effects on the body, reducing inflammation, all kinds of other effects. The third thing that it does is it activates brown fat. Brown fat is different than white fat. White fat is the visible fat, the fat that we don't like. Brown fat is the fat that actually is our thermostat. There is a cost to warming your body up. You're in 58-degree water, you're going to go back to 98.6 degrees. There's a cost to that. The cost is calories. We take a calorie, we turn it into a measure of heat with brown fat, and we raise our body temperature back up. When that happens, the liver will begin a process called gluconeogenesis. It will actually take stored sugar, glycogen, which is from your previous meal. Let's say you ate dinner at 7 or 8 o'clock the previous night, you didn't eat all night, you didn't have breakfast, and you got in a cold plunge. Why would your glucose rise? Your glucose is rising because your liver is taking glycogen, which is stored, and putting it into the bloodstream as glucose. That is not only a very normal response, it is a very good response to show you that you are physiologically responding properly to cold plunging. So it raises your blood sugar, it's hard to conceive, without you eating. The same thing happens, by the way, if you were monitoring your blood sugar. You might notice that when you wake up in the morning and you start moving around, your blood sugar starts to rise. You go, how's my blood sugar rising? I'm not even eating. That is your liver doing its job, taking glycogen, stored sugar, and turning it into glucose, which is available for energy. So it's called gluconeogenesis. If you had too much sugar, it would store it as glycogen.
All right. Thank you for everything. I'm 69. I feel like I'm 40. I can't thank you guys enough.
That's so awesome, man. I'm 54 and I feel like I'm 25.
Biologic age.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Congratulations.
I also love opening up the BPC powder into the water, an ounce, drink that. So good for the esophagus, stomach. Anyone dealing with acid reflux, which is going to cause that erosion, it's really, really helpful.
Wow, I never even thought about that because it does come in capsule form.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know your name's not Zoom user, but I'm just going to call you. Hi, Zoom.
It's Valentina.
Hi, Valentina.
Good morning, gentlemen. Oh, good evening. I've been on the gut reset already all day because I'm in Dubai and it's evening for me. It's almost 8 o'clock.
I'll be there Friday.
And you'll be there Friday.
I'll be in Dubai on Friday.
Oh my goodness, we should meet.
I'll be at that. Go ahead. Sorry.
I managed to get my whole family into this gut reset journey, and of course I've got a teenager who is complaining throughout the whole day, and she was asking me a question about can she eat honey on the gut reset, but my real question is about the skin conditions. So I've been struggling with acne and like maybe hormonal, I don't know what's related. I'm in my 40s. And I was wondering how long would it take to be on this gut reset to see any improvement in the skin conditions, if it's related to gut?
Go ahead.
Love this.
Yeah, this is one
Love
of my
this
favorites,
question. And acne is your specific concern. It doesn't matter if it's acne, psoriasis, dermatitis, eczema, rosacea, whatever name the doctors want to call it, right? You have to understand it's not a skin problem, it's a leaky gut problem. Your body's always going to try to get toxins out. So what happens is when we have that leaky gut, and Gary really explained it perfectly during the first hour, you have these toxins, whether that's pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, glyphosate, inflammation, these stealth gut infections that leak their way through the gut wall. Now they're in the blood. And he was talking about blood pH. Your blood's got to maintain this really constant pH. So the blood's like, I don't want this crap in here. It dumps it into the body, into the tissues, which we call issues with the tissues. Now your lymphatic system's got to deal with it. So like a vacuum, your lymphatic system literally pulls these toxins out, and it has a choice. It says, first, I want to get these out. Let's give it back to the blood. But the blood's like, wait a minute. I just gave those to you. I don't want that back. So now the lymphatic system has a second option. It's to get it out of your skin. Again, the largest detox system of the body. So anyone out there dealing with any skin issues, you got to go and heal and seal that gut wall. Number one, stop the weapons of mass destruction, those acidic inflammatory foods from coming in that's going to disrupt that gut, but also it goes back to the hydrochloric acid. We have to get the hydrochloric acid levels up to stop the infiltration of those gut infections that ultimately are going to eat their way through that gut wall. So again, probiotics are important. The fermented foods are critical. Omega-3 fatty acids are so important. There's a 2-week leaky gut protocol. We can talk about that another time. That really helps heal and seal the gut wall. But there's so many different ways to do that. Once you patch up that wall, everything's contained in the gut. You're going to release it out through the stool the way that it should be released out of the body.
I could not agree with that more. I can't even tell you how many eczema, psoriasis, topical, dermatitis infections, rosacea, the butterfly rashes, and sebaceous acne. We've had both of my youngest children, my daughter and my son, both suffered in their teenage years. My son's now 20. From sebaceous acne. 2 things that I did for them was really focused on their gut and their face cleared up. I have them drinking hydrogen water. That is another big one.
Big time.
And you can even bathe in the hydrogen water if you want to accelerate that process. I actually had a cardiologist here on a previous podcast. His name is Dr. Asim Malhotra, and which you should watch that podcast if you get a chance. It's all about cholesterol. But Dr. Asim, I noticed when he showed up to my unit, had a big patch of psoriasis on the surface of his skin. When he stripped down to his shorts, I could see the big patches of psoriasis, eczema all over his body. 2 baths in hydrogen water, and it was not completely in remission. But visibly dramatically better. It's all inflammation. Remember, the body has 2 types of sweating. We have passive and active sweating. We have a type of sweating to reduce body temperature. We have a second type of sweating to eliminate waste. And very often this results in skin rashes and skin irritation. So I couldn't agree with that more. 10 minutes. Oh, we're heading to the kitchen. Oh, dude, this is so awesome. Nice. In 10 minutes, we head to the kitchen. All right. That wasn't just for you. That was just sort of a general statement. Did we answer your question? Great.
And do some lymphatic drainage. Bounce on a rebounder. That'll help too.
Good, yeah.
No,
Goodbye.
Dubai. Kathy, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Hey guys, good question. How about gut health for those of us on GLP-1s? And would BPC 157 be a good option?
Well, so GLP-1s, remember GLP-1s, glucose-like polypeptides are actually, it's a hormone that we make in the gut.
Right.
Back to the gut. And it's made in response to satiation, right? And GLP-1 responds very well. It rises and tells you that you're full. GLP-1s will rise when we are nutrient satiated. So what's really interesting is if you look at a lot of side-by-side studies of people eating identically, the same identical caloric diet, like 1,500 calories a day. And you have one group that is eating highly processed foods and one that's eating whole, nutrient-dense foods. You find that the nutrient-dense food population has a tendency to eat less because they are more satiated because they have higher GLP. So I am a fan of GLP-1s in certain circumstances. I don't think that they should be something you should be on for life. They're great for type 2 diabetics, morbidly obese. It's become a vanity drug, which I think for vanity, it's not the answer for vanity. The answer to vanity is fix the insanity that led to the condition that you're in. We still need to address the toxic soup that we're bathing our cellular biology in. It's not just about weight loss. When we talk about GLP-1s, it's about why are we in the place where we actually need to lose weight. And so the thing that I would tell you about GLP-1s is threefold. Number one, this is a great time while your cravings are controlled to reset your dietary intake of whole foods, right? I mean, a lot of times what we do is we're bathing our cellular biology in this toxic soup. We get on a GLP-1, we're less hungry, so we eat less of the toxic foods. So we're just eating a smaller volume of toxic foods, which results in weight loss, and we think that that's actually the trajectory to being healthy. The trajectory to regaining a state of optimal health is not just to eat less of the toxic foods, it's to stop eating those foods that started the process in the first place. The other two things I would suggest is Perfect Aminos is an absolute must. And if you can, start a strength training program. And by strength training, you know, a lot of times when I say this to women, they're like, oh, I don't want to go in and bench and squat and deadlift. You don't have to do those things. But I'm talking about resistance training, where you're actually picking up weights and putting them down, where you're actually doing leg extensions, leg curls, body weight squats, holding yourself in a plank. You don't have to do push-ups, but holding yourself in a plank, doing something to actually put a stress on the musculoskeletal system, hopefully even tear some of that muscle, so that the weight that you lose has a tendency to lean towards fat mass and not towards lean body mass. I also just did a really interesting podcast with a physician. Did it air yet? When did it air? With the GLP-1 Dr. Tina.
It's coming out tomorrow.
Oh, it comes out tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a podcast launching. My team's sitting off camera, but there's a podcast launching tomorrow with Dr. Tina Moore, Tyna Moore, and we go way down the rabbit hole on GLP-1s, and it would be a really good podcast for you to watch.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You got it, Kathy. Great talking to you. Dude, I'm psyched we get to go into the kitchen. There's a lot of good stuff going on in there right now, guys.
I can smell it.
Making the Thai soup.
Oh, they're making the Thai soup? Awesome.
Look at this Happy Dad hat.
Peter, oh, you got the Happy Dad hat on?
I got happy that yeah, I made it out to the 5K run and got to meet Cole in Toronto.
Oh, you met him in Toronto. Yeah, that was the only one I couldn't go to. We started those run clubs. So we did one in Vegas, one in Toronto. I think we're planning one in Miami sometime soon, and again in Vegas. We're going to really try to get people moving around the times of the UFC fight. So
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I'm glad to
What do
be
you got,
part
Peter?
of it. So my question is, I'm finally switching over to a whole food diet, trying to stick somewhat to animal based.
Yes.
Eggs seem to upset my stomach in the morning, so I did just actually I found a local grass-fed, grass-finished farm, and I got about 100 pounds of meat from there, different cuts. I'm wondering, based on your knowledge and studies, how often I can eat this red meat. I see conflicting things, that say, maybe 2 times a week, but then I see people like Paul Saladino who, he eats it every day. So in terms of my gut and other factors, how is every day okay to eat red meat?
So I eat grass-fed, grass-finished beef 5 or sometimes 6 days a week. I get my meats from Parker Pastures. If you found a good one locally, that's great. The reason why I like Parker Pastures for the rest of you guys that are listening is because they ship to all 50 states. So no matter what state you're in, you can get grass-fed, grass-finished meat. And I have actually physically gone and met the cows in the pasture and watched the entire process from start to finish. So I'm a huge fan of that. A lot of times grass-fed doesn't mean that it's grass-finished. They will feed them some grass, and they will feed them some of the garbage, some of the soybean, high fructose corn syrup, and cattle feeds, GMO corn. So make sure your beef is grass-fed, grass-finished. It makes a huge difference. I also have started to post my blood biomarkers. I'll show you the next fully comprehensive exam that I do. I'll post it up onto Instagram for everybody to see, because I think if you're practicing what you preach, you should put it out there. I have the triglycerides of a vegan. So my triglycerides are usually between 45 and 60. I don't think I've ever seen them fasted over 60. My LDL cholesterol is slightly elevated. It's in about the 180 range. My HDL cholesterol is almost 100. So it's a different profile than most would tell you is a healthy profile, but having low triglycerides and high, slightly elevated LDL cholesterol is a marker for longevity, not a marker for cardiovascular disease. I did a whole podcast on this with Dr. Aseem Malhotra, which is free and it's already been put out there. Be a great podcast for you to watch, because he is a big fan of eating grass-fed, grass-finished beef, pasture-raised eggs, free-range chicken, pasture-raised chickens. What you said earlier, we're not what we eat, we're what we eat eats.
Yes, yes.
So that's a big
corn and soy.
Yeah, that is a big part of what makes a lot of meats very pro-inflammatory. Also, overcooking them, charring them, and cooking meats well done or overly well done also leads to a lot of toxic metabolites. So I'd like to eat it medium rare or medium. And if you're doing that, you shouldn't have any issues with your cholesterol metabolism or downside from inflammatory factors.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
You got it. All right. I'm so excited. Can we do one more question? Because I'm going to do one more question, then we're going to head into the kitchen. I like the questions. I feel like this is where the rubber meets the road.
Totally.
Okay, so I'll make it quick. Ryan. Hey, man.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, good morning from Guam again. How are you doing?
Great.
Okay, on the Dr. Gundry podcast, a question came up. You asked him with the grass-fed, grass-finished, and he said yes, but it needs to be fermented, or else there's that compound. I think he said F5 or whatever it is, compound molecule.
Yeah, MK5.
Yeah, that could be a connection possibly with cancer. So that's where some of the confusion starts to come in.
Let me clear that up. Let me clear that up for you. This is precisely the reason why I think that we need to incorporate fermented foods into our diet. What they found was when you incorporated diets that had fermented foods in them, fermented vegetables, kefirs, and were very high in red meat, did not have the downside consequences of diets that were purely just high in red meats and dairies. And so I agree with him. It's, just eating pure, like hardcore carnivore where you're just eating red meat, to me, that's not long-term sustainable and can lead to a lot of gut dysbiosis. But by adding the fermented foods, he found a ranch that fermented the beef, soaked it in basically fermented vegetable juice, prior to sending it to you. You can get the same thing by eating in its natural state. So if you eat meat in its natural state, but you incorporate fermented vegetables, you negate the very issue that he's talking about.
Okay, cool. Now I don't have to kick those cattle off my ranch there in Colorado. So
No, just invite some of the kefir veggies onto the ranch.
okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, guys, you ready for the kitchen? I'm so excited. We're gonna head over to the kitchen to go over today's snack and lunch. I've never done this before, so I'm gonna see you in about 1 minute in my kitchen. So give me some patience, but we're gonna fire it up in the kitchen in about 60 seconds.
All the green stuff in it. So you have onions, garlic, ginger, okay, some lemongrass.
Onion,
garlic, fire. You're live.
All right, guys. Dude, look how good this looks. And no, there's no Ben and Jerry's off camera. All right. I mean, just look how amazing this is. It's like that coconut curry that we talk about. This exact recipe is what I put into the gut challenge guide, but it's got onions, garlic, we've got lemongrass in here. These are your fermented pickled onions. For those of you that don't even like onions, or you get, your stomach doesn't agree with you with onions, try the pickled onions. I promise you won't have that issue. Of course, I've got the Baja Gold sea salt right here. I wish you guys could smell this. It smells amazing. And then we found the pasture raised or the free range chicken. Free range means that chicken are just running around eating worms and bugs and grasses and all the things that chickens are actually supposed to eat. And then of course the kettle and fire bone broth. So these are natural organic bone broths that's one of my favorites. That's what I use to ease into a fast, and I use it to ease out of a fast. I think bone broth, especially if you're ever not feeling well, or your stomach is really upset, or you're getting over a cold, bone broths are excellent for you. I did get a couple of questions this morning. Some people said I don't really like curry, and I don't really like the coconut milks. So you can just use the stock as bone broth. I prefer that thick, creamy texture that you get from the coconut curries, and I've even used coconut milk in my coffees because it's nice and thick, and I'll put in a little monk fruit in there if I don't have access to the acid kicking minerals. But guys, this is literally a pharmacy for your gut, a natural pharmacy for your gut. And I love anytime that we can actually use whole foods to restore homeostasis, right? And so whole foods are going to be not just more nutrient dense, but they're going to be more satiating. I started to talk about this a little earlier, but very often what happens to us is that since we're not getting the right level of nutrients, amino acids, minerals, vitamins from our foods, our brain still tells us to eat because it hasn't been satisfied. The body is really, really an intelligent organism. If you go too long without eating, it will actually shut off the sensation for hunger. If you get too clinically dehydrated, it shuts off the sensation for thirst. So let's talk about, oh my goodness, this is so good. Yeah, so in my guide, guys, that I wrote for you, and hopefully you've all downloaded this. If not, you can download it for free, is the Thai coconut chicken soup, which is right here that I'm about to fire up, and I'm gonna eat it right in front of you. 4 ounces of pasture-raised chicken breast, shredded, 1 can of full-fat coconut milk. Please don't be afraid of fats. For some reason, a lot of my female clients are definitely afraid of fats. They're still clinging to that 1990s war on fat. Fat doesn't make you fat, sugar makes you fat. People that eat the most sugar have the highest blood fat. That is a patent fact. People that eat healthy fats have low levels of triglyceride in their blood. Okay, a tablespoon of ghee. Remember, ghee butter is clarified butter. So even if you don't eat animal products, you can actually cook and eat ghee butter. If you take ghee butter and add a little bit of Baja Gold salt to it, it tastes just like the other butters you're going to eat. It also has a very high smoke point, so you can use it to cook. It's very safe to use it at high temperatures. A tablespoon of fresh grated ginger. I don't see the ginger. Where's the ginger? Oh, is this ginger? Okay, well, it's somewhere. It's in there. Fresh grated ginger. Then we have a clove of garlic. God, this looks so good. Look at that, dude. If you're not getting hungry right now, there is something wrong with you. That looks so good. I could just cry. I may cry. Whatever. I'm a man. I can cry. Yeah, look at, you can see it all. You can see it all in there. 1 stalk of lemongrass pounded. 2 cups of Kettle and Fire bone broth. I love Kettle and Fire because it comes in the whole cup packs, and they use organic bones to create the bone broth. It has a tablespoon of fish sauce. I know fish sauce sounds terrible, but it's actually very good. And it has 1 lime and fresh cilantro and Thai basil for garnish. This is amazing. And then, of course, we're going to be getting around to our cucumber slices with miso. Those are amazing. That's going to be our mid-afternoon snack. These are delicious. They're satiating. They're crunchy. You can masticate on them. They're going to put we're using cucumbers and miso dressing to create those, and rice vinegar. Okay.
Nope, I'm watching Gary Brecka gut reset live thing.
All right, so let's fire this up. Dude, this is so gut healthy, guys. If you didn't get this recipe yet, this should be the one that you're going to use.
Oh my gosh, it smells so good.
So good. Does it?
Sorry, guys. Hopefully you're doing this at home as well.
Let me get you a spoon.
And by the way, the bone broth is so good for leaky gut. Those amino acids in there, glycine, it's going to actually help heal and seal the gut wall. So whether you're doing a solo like Gary mentioned or in this soup, it's amazing to heal the entire gut.
Yeah, one of my favorite oncology physicians, Dr. Minkoff, whenever he has patients that are going through his oncology treatment program, which he does not use heavy doses of chemotherapy, bone broth is the basis of their diet, because he says it's the best form of natural amino acids to put into the gut. So, all right, fire it up.
This is all me. I get to go first. It's hot. All right, here we go.
Oh, get a little lime on there. The chef's in the back saying, put some lime in there.
That is insane.
See, I think
that is so good.
I feel like if people knew how to eat like this, they would just eat like this. And
this is all you want to do. And it's, by the way, it's easy. You just got to get into the kitchen. You got to get some practice. I used to be an awful chef, but the more I got in there, got my hands wet, it just becomes a lifestyle, right? Not a diet. This is a lifestyle.
Fire this up myself.
Detoxification is a lifestyle. You know, this is like something we should be doing every single day.
I totally agree with that. All right, let's fire this up.
Okay. You get lemon?
Good.
Let me try this too.
A nice piece of chicken.
It's hot.
It is hot. Okay. Dude, those look really hot. That's not like
it's like burning my hand hot.
Okay. Yeah, watch the temperature.
This is the way we like it. This is the way we like it.
That's like
All
serious.
right. Do you have any burns out for my hands? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I need to try some of those cucumbers.
Oh my God.
That's the snack.
Yeah.
Talk about the cucumbers.
Alright, we'll just grab. We're just using our hands here.
We thinly slice the cucumbers and we use the miso
We're
dressing.
We're using our hands.
A teaspoon of miso paste and rice vinegar, and a teaspoon of
Baja Gold? You put in there?
Mm-hmm.
You did?
Yeah, put in there. I assume I should put in there.
Minerals, more minerals. So important for the gut.
Guys, this is so good. Thank you guys for tuning in to day one of a gut check.